So this is Landon Dieterich. Him and I played ball together with the Nats. Landon was a much different type of player than I was. For me, I was a left-handed hitter, about 6 foot tall. This guy's about 7'8". So we had a little bit different approaches at the plate. But today we're going to talk loads. Landon, again, former professional, currently coaches at Barrel Factory in Texas. What part? Waco, Texas. So we're going to talk loads today and yeah, just see where it takes us. So Landon, show me what type of load did you have, and when you're working with kids, maybe if they're younger and they haven't found what load works best for them, do you have any tips on how they can best find that or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. So my load was simple. I was very easy and slow, trying to not do too much. So I would just lean back into my back hip, step forward, just a little. I had a little step. So that's one of the four you can do. It's my little step. For the kids, whatever load and style they do, because obviously you were a toe tap guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's see that.
Yeah, so for me it was, I was also thinking like small movements were better when I would think like, I would think like aggressive intent, but with my load and like, especially with how I move my hands, I had to think small because I had such a tendency to like get really big and back here. So for me, yeah, it was like toe tap and go. So it was, yeah, when I was hitting my best, it looked like this. There was times where I'd get into trouble where I would be more
Out front.
Exactly.
Of course.
That's
everybody.
when, yeah, that's when I get
Join
in
the
trouble.
club. Yeah, so with the kid, and so we got the small step, we got the toe tap. You can do a leg kick, you can do no stride, right? Just rock. But what I try to tell everyone and make sure everyone knows is when you load, you want to get back in your back hip. I mean, everybody knows that. But then also, I want to feel like I'm stretching a rubber band between this hand right here, either hand, but bottom hand, to my front foot. And it doesn't have to overstretch, it just has to be coiled tightly.
Yes.
That's just all I'm trying to do is stretch this rubber band this way so I'm ready to hit and stand back.
And it's funny, I feel like there were times when, so we played together in Palm Beach, Florida for a little while. That's where I met him. And I remember there were some times where I think I'd even see you hooking bands up.
Oh yeah, I'm a band guy.
Yeah, so I feel like I've seen you do something. Tell me about what you would do with your bands to feel that kind of coil and stretch.
Right, so any just band you have that you can hook to yourself, like I said, you can hook it to your front. You can even take the bands you use for pitchers and hook one
The J-bands, yeah.
Yep, J-bands, one to your front foot and hold tightly on the other one, and then just work on how it feels when you stretch that out. And you can stretch it far by doing this, but you're not ready to punch. So you always have to be ready, and you can stretch it. And one thing I like that we might differ on, I'm not sure, is doing it slowly, especially for the youngest kids, because there's the 8-year-old or the 12-year-old that looks like they're 19 and they're throwing what looks like 100. And then there's the other kids who look like they're throwing with their left hand and they're right-handed. So if you're trying to be on time for both of those and you have the quickest load ever, then you just have to be perfect.
Oh, totally.
But if you could slow it down off the slow guy, off the guy who's throwing 30, be like, oh, okay. Now, or the guy who looks like he's throwing 100, you can go start early and slow and be like, all right, I got to get down.
Yeah.
I got to get down.
Oh, totally. No, I agree with you 100% there, especially for actually at every age, because for me at least, again, the saying, right, slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Right.
That's very true. And what I found was, especially as I moved up levels and started facing faster pitching, the faster the pitching I faced, the more I had to slow it down. Like, the faster that they are, the more you have to smooth out your movements, because if you let your athleticism take over, like, you will be able to react quick enough. But that's the key, is like being able to like react. I feel like so many times our anticipation as a hitter leads us to actually move before we see where the ball is even headed. And so if you can relax and have a slower movement, a lot of times I feel like, for me at least, my pitch recognition gets better, and I find myself actually being faster even though I'm thinking slower. So you work with kids often. With their loads, what's maybe some common things that you'll see them doing wrong? Something you maybe see multiple times in a lesson.
Right, and this is especially for the younger kids, because there's a lot of controversy around where this back elbow is allowed to go. Like, you got some guys, the guys who get it way up, and I think Trout has a huge back elbow, and there's people who say that's bad, and it makes you go the other way, right?
Right.
And then there's guys that have it low wherever. Kids, love this. I guess it's because they're out of T-ball, and
Yeah.
until they're 12, it's like, this is their load.
Yeah.
So one thing I like
Yes.
when we stretch the band is we always, you know, I like it relaxed back here, but if you tell them, hey, get it up, get it strong, or front shoulder down just a little bit, it can level them out. Because
Yeah.
I've had coaches tell me, you want to be straight. I've had coaches talk about, hey, get it down, and then you can get through better.
Sure.
But what I like is be comfortable, and if it goes down a little bit, down and in, that's fine. It's like a cheat code, especially when you're 12. You're not reacting to 98. Now, you
Yes.
might have to cool it out later.
Yeah.
But if you can go down and in just a little bit, when you go to switch your shoulders, you're not going to switch them this
Yes.
way. You're
Yeah.
going to be able to switch through.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one other thing, and this is maybe a little bit more advanced, but it's all about planes, right? And that's what you hear him saying. Like when with kids, there's just such a tendency to be here. And so more often than not, I find myself telling kids, you almost have to think down right now because the way you're working is back here. And when you're working back, like whatever, like look at this right here and think of it as like an axis with the rest of my body. So I have my spine here, and then I have my shoulders height here. Right, there you go. Perfect.
Your spine.
Yep. So for me as a hitter, we have to get some sort of posture over the plate to help us working on the right plane. But if we get some lean this way, you can see how that changes my angle here, going directly upwards. That's 2 upwards into the baseball, and pitches are coming into the zone at about this plane here. So as a hitter, I'm trying to match that plane and get online with it as much as I can. It's like virtually level as far as where the ball comes in. It's just a slight downward angle. So me as a hitter, and especially younger kids, they want to elevate, they want to hit the ball a long ways. They think that doing this is going to do it, but instead their bat's going across this plane instead of on that plane. And makes it a lot harder to hit. So, okay, another question then for you. For guys who are, say, going into college, going into pro ball, did you find yourself making any major load adjustments later on in your career? And if you did, what were they? And then if not, what were the kind of adjustments looking like later on in your career, once you were already established with your swing?
Right, and so for me, as I got more comfortable facing college pitchers and even the end of my high school career, it ended up changing my load, but not on purpose. Mm-hmm. So what happened is when I got to college, I had the little step, just a little. But then as I got more comfortable and I took a lot of BP and I got after those velo guys, I get more comfortable, try to hit it harder, and then a month later I was doing this, and then a month later I was doing this. And then I look back and watch myself when I was struggling. It's like, when did I start full-on leg kick? I mean, a full-on leg kick.
Yeah.
And I see it happen to some guys I work with because it can get bigger here, or they can start diving in a little bit. The more comfortable you get, you can dive in, you can get bigger. So I mean, and I'll say it again, I just had to cool myself out and be like, hey, you're not trying to do too much. You're not trying to do too much. Because that was big for me. Because I looked up one day and I was like, where is this move coming from? My eyes are crazy. I know better than this, you know? And that's for me. What about you? You had the same thing?
Yeah, so that's the funny thing is, and this is a good note for everyone watching, like we were polar opposites. I, when left to myself for too long, would keep shrinking down my movement so much to where my movement, like my, say, freshman year of college was like here and go.
Hilarious.
And so I just kept shrinking down, and then and as a result I wasn't getting a proper stretch, I wasn't getting into a good position, and so I was like making contact with the ball, but I was never on plane, and I was always like chopping right down at the ball. And so after my freshman year, I was like, man, I don't even know if I can play in college because I thought I sucked. And then I went over that summer and had to, and like changed everything and thought really big. Like I still had to think like smooth and slow with my movements, but like big, smooth, slow movements. And I did that for a summer and then I raked and I was like, oh shoot.
Crazy.
So again, hitting's a balancing act, and different players are gonna need different things. Some players are gonna have a tendency to be here and need to think like up and back a little bit. And then most players have a tendency to be back here and need to think, down through it a little bit. And some players need to think, okay, be smooth, be small.
Hit the ball the other way. And that's when I would hit it. 400 feet.
So he thinks like let's like shrink things down and drive it the other way, nice and smooth. I was a guy who had to think turn and burn, get big. Exactly. Because if I didn't, I would be inside outing the ball and it would just shoot the other way. And I could always go to the opposite field, but to the pull side I struggled. So good note here. And again, so Landon's a bigger guy. I think hitters need to learn how to know their size and know their tendencies, and that's just something that you develop. Do you feel like you understand yourself now more as a hitter than you did in high school?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's not even close, right? So as you get older, you continue to understand your swing and learn it more and more. And so that's a little bit about the load, how it fits into our own swings. As you can see, everybody's different. But whether you have a toe tap, whether you have a leg kick, it's always going to be a little bit of a balancing act. Again, think of your swing as something that you're moving towards this goal of perfecting it, but you're never gonna get there. So always know that you're gonna have, it's a journey. So you're always gonna have to course correct, and you're never actually going to arrive. So if you feel like new things are coming up in your swing that's causing it to go wrong, it's normal.
Every time.
Yeah, absolutely normal. It's part of the process. So Landon, thanks for being here. See you next week.